Click that. See, no, but now I can't see anything. And so I don't know what's going on. Okay. Tony, I think I'm flying blind. What do you do?
Keep going.
Keep going.
You got it. We can see the slides. We can see you. We can hear you. All is well.
All right.
And Debbie, I'll watch the chat if something comes up.
Thank you, because I can't see the chat at all now.
I think if you talk, you might be able to toggle between maybe not. I was just doing this today.
I know, I figured it out last time, but I don't remember how to do it.
What if you click chat at the bottom of your screen? Like go all the way to the top and hover, or all the way to the bottom and hover? Does that little screen or the little bar pop up with the options?
It gives me more. Let me check on chat. Okay, now I can see the chat. All right. Okay. Thank you.
That fix that?
Yeah, it's just that usually, or in the past, I've been able to have the PowerPoint up and see at least some of the people, and I can't see any people this time.
They might have been drug off the screen off to the side today when I was doing it. There was one off to the right. All the people were on the right side of the screen.
Mm-hmm. I can't get it to do anything. It just advances. It's only listening to the clicking to advance. Well, if we can't figure it out, we'll just do it like this. Of course, I can't tell if it's recording.
It's recording.
Okay, so I'm going to pause it because I don't need 10 minutes yet. There we go. Okay, thank you for joining. Tonight's topic is all things dissertation and practice. Obviously, can't actually be much depth in all things dissertation and practice, but we'll give you an overview and then we'll answer questions at the end. Before we get started, though, I am happy to introduce a special guest for a few minutes here. Her name is Gladys Jenke, and she is the chaplain for our program, and she would like to take a few minutes to talk with you. Gladys?
Okay, good evening, everybody. I don't know if you can see me at this point. I appreciate the opportunity to be here, and just, again, it'll be just short. I want to talk about something called wisdom groups. The term started at the undergraduate level here on the Creighton campus, and these are really small groups of students, anywhere from 6 to 8, with 1 or 2 moderators. And they're really an intentional way of getting together, taking a time out, thinking about what's happening, and focusing on your story, your well-being. They're small communities, essentially, is what they amount to. They seem to work pretty well, especially for distance students, because it enables you to make connections with other members of your program that you might not be able to do since you're not in a campus setting. We're going to be starting these, making them available this fall. That'll be in August. But I just wanted to take a couple of minutes to mention them and to encourage you to give some consideration to see if you might want to join these. Some of the previous students, especially in the pharmacy distance program, their comments have been that it certainly is a way to develop community. It's also a way to take a time out very intentionally to focus on what's going on with you. They're not problem-solving groups. There is definitely a need for confidentiality, so what's shared in the group stays in the group. Everyone has an opportunity to share or not share. If they feel like today they don't want to talk, that's not necessary. We try to keep them to about an hour, maybe a little longer than that, depending on how many people are in the group and what's up as far as what's to be shared. Generally, we start out with a few minutes of just getting oriented and settling in. Then there's a pre-scheduled topic, which we try to keep that seasonal in nature. Maybe it's, what's happening now that you're starting to move toward your dissertation, or what are your plans for the upcoming holidays? What are your favorite memories about the holidays? But again, it's a topic that we try to make relevant or keep relevant to the individuals that are in the group. And after everyone has had an opportunity to share, then we do a little wrap up and the group schedules the next session. So typically it's best, we found, to meet about every 2 weeks, but we try to flex that in cases of like Thanksgiving holiday, or if it's the end of a class, an 8-week term, and you've got a lot of things going on, everybody can say, oh, let's not meet in 2 weeks, let's meet in 3 weeks. But we have found that certainly you need to meet about every 2 weeks, or otherwise the group just really doesn't have a chance to come together and gel. The other thing that we try to do too is we're very much aware that things change, so we look at things pretty much on a semester basis. So if someone signed up in August, then we'd have a chance at the end of, probably around the end of November, we'd give the group an opportunity to say whether or not they wanted to continue into the next semester. So that's, in a nutshell, that's it. I'll be sending out some more information in August. Does anybody have any questions, or has anybody had any similar experiences in the past they'd like to talk about?
Gladys, this is Charlotte Liggett. I presume this is all done again with Zoom or online. How does it happen?
Probably with Zoom. That seems to be the format where the university is going. But yes, it's definitely in an environment that it doesn't matter where you are. And of course then the group, once a group kind of gets going and started, the group is the one that decides timing. You know, what time, whether it's day or evening. And then, as I said, about every 2 weeks you meet, but then at the end of each session, the group steps back and says, well, no, wait a minute, that's not going to make sense because of, and then, so the group agrees to flex the schedule.
Thank you.
Thanks for the question. Okay, well, if there aren't any questions, enjoy the rest of your session this evening. I will send some information out in August. And if something comes up after this session, if you do want to learn more or understand or get some more information, just send me an email and I'll get back to you, all right? Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Gladys. I'm going to, I have your phone number and email in the PowerPoint presentation, so they'll have a chance to write that down if they want to also.
Great. Okay. Thank you. You guys have a good meeting. Bye-bye.
Bye, Gladys.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay. All right, then I'm going to switch to the PowerPoint, so I don't know how much you'll be able to see me. Leah Georges, you'll see, is in the group chat there. If you have questions as we go along, I'm not going to be able to pay attention much to the chat until Leah says, Debbie, look at the chat.
Got it.
So feel free to ask questions along the way. I'm fine with that. Ready?
Let's do it.
Okay. Come on. There we go. All right, are we good?
Looks
Now,
good.
this time I can see you. Who knows? All right. Anyway. All right. So tonight's topic, as you can tell, is all things dissertation in practice. We call it DIP for short, if you haven't heard that already. So if you see it referenced both ways, that's what that's about. This presentation is adapted from one that was designed by Dr. Martin and Lydia Holtz. Lydia is our new program coordinator, and she's also on our online tonight, is what I'm trying to say. So if we have specific questions, or if you have specific questions, she'll be available to help answer those as well. So I just made some adaptations to this for our presentation this evening. I'm just looking at the time so we do okay. All right, so our agenda, first of all, we talked about wisdom groups. I'm going to walk through the DIP process and provide some tips along the way. There will be a resources slide at the end we'll walk through very quickly. Hot topics this week, or this month rather, is emphasizing communicating with the program, and Shannon Cox, our program advisor, is online, so she'll be able to talk about that briefly and answer questions, and then we have a Q&A session. So that's the plan for the evening. Here is Gladys's contact information if you are interested in the wisdom groups. It's Gladys Janke at creighton.edu, and she's 402-280-2810. That's handy. Close enough.
And Debbie, I think we're going to put that info in a newsletter too, right? So those that aren't here and missed it, we'll make sure everyone has some more information about these wisdom groups.
Good point. Thank you. All right. So the dip, your time to dig something up out of the ground or create something, grow something out of the ground perhaps. So what we're going to do is talk about the steps required to complete the dip. It'll emphasize your role in terms of engaging with the tasks, and then we'll walk through each step. So to get us started, the first step is to identify some ideas. And as Dr. Martin notes here, some people come with ideas to the program, which is great. Please know that you are not required to come to the program with ideas because you'll develop them as you go through the program, hopefully. Other times people come in with ideas, and then by the time we get to the 814, they've changed their mind about what they want to work on. So there's no requirement about when you're supposed to have an idea other than by the time you start 814, you should have a pretty good, at least general area of what you want to be looking at for your dip. So here's a general timeline. Essentially what's happening in your program are these categories on the left-hand side under the activity. So all of you will be taking a first set of research courses with electives. Those are 812 and then 890 and 899E. 812 is research design, and 890 and 899E is the literature review course. Takes about 9 months to do that set of courses. Then you need to achieve candidacy, and we've got a separate recording about candidacy, so we could answer a few brief questions at the end, but take a look at that. I think it was this is June, so that was the May JayTalk, and that recording is posted in the EDD resources site. So if you have questions about that, take a look at that. It gives you a lot of details. You achieve candidacy during your 32nd to 35th credit hour. You can't take it before your 32nd credit hour, and you cannot proceed after the 35th hour. So there is a time frame in there. Once you've achieved candidacy, you'll take more researchers courses, which is 813, and I forgot the name of 813, Leah.
Research, design, and professional inquiry, maybe.
What's 812 then?
Maybe that.
Okay. And then maybe
813 is you try on various methodologies, 4 weeks of qual, 4 weeks of quant to see how you best answer your research question from both designs.
Thank you. I'm still sorting those out. And then once you take 813, you'll have an idea of which methodology you prefer. Hopefully you've started thinking about what your research question is going to be for the dissertation. So 850 is the quantitative methods course, and 851 is the qualitative methods course. It doesn't lock you into either one of those because our goal is that you're using the methodology that appropriately answers the question that you ask. But if you're getting kind of narrowed down, a little more sure of what you're interested in, then you select the methodology course that's the best fit for you. That takes about 4 months to take care of those two courses. Then you'll take 814. We're going to talk about that shortly in more detail. It's the proposal class, and it takes about 2 months. It's an 8-week course, so that's where the 2 months comes from. After you finish 814, you'll take your last electives and defend your proposal. That's a 3 to 5 month time frame, generally for most people. Once you've defended your proposal, you'll apply for IRB, Institutional Review Board, permission to go forward with your study. You take 899 credit hours, which is the actual course number for credit hours for dissertation, and you work on your research. That time frame is about 3 to 4 months for most people. And then you prepare and defend your final destination. It is a destination, but it is a dissertation. And you take 2 to 4 months to do that. So I love Dr. Martin's cartoon over here. The plan looks like a straight line and everything's going to go fine. And in reality, it actually looks like this. Lots of things happen along the way. So if those things happen, please stay in contact with your dissertation chair. We're going to talk about how you get that person shortly. But stay in contact with your dissertation chair and with Shannon Cox, our program advisor, because there are ways that we can help you with the curriculum if we know what's going on. So when reality strikes, get in contact with us. All right, so here, some of the slides I'm going to show you are quite detailed. I'm not going to walk through every detail of every slide, but it is available for you to watch after this presentation. It'll be posted within 24 hours in the EDD resources site. So broadly, here's what we're talking about in terms of completing your dissertation of practice. First of all, there's a match process with your chair. I'm going to talk about that in the next slide. Second, you successfully complete ILD 814. ILD 814 is proposal construction. It is a course designed to give you structure to write chapters 1 through 3, or the bulk of chapters 1 through 3. You're not going to be perfectly ready on the last day of class to defend your proposal, but you should have a really solid draft of it at the end of 814 going forward, so that you're not out there on your own struggling to try and put that first part together. Once you've defended, then within 16 weeks after 814, you'll defend your proposal. Once you've successfully defended your proposal, we'll talk about what that involves in a second. Then you're going to submit an IRB application to Creighton. That is a key step along the way because you must have IRB permission before you collect data. On the surface, it may look like it's a box you have to check before you can go forward, but IRB is all about protecting the participants. It's much less about us personally. It's not about the program. It's not about you. That step is all about protecting participants. So it's a key step. You don't want to start collecting data without that approval. We can talk more about that in a few minutes. Then you'll collect and analyze data. You'll write chapters 4 and 5, and then revise and write and revise and write. It's an ongoing iterative process, but that's the goal in that step. Once you're done and your chair and your second committee member agree that it's time to defend your dissertation, then that you'll defend your dip, and then you'll take care of revisions and paperwork once you successfully defend, and then ta-da, you graduate. So we're going to talk a little bit about each step along the way here. All right, the nitty-gritty. The first part is the student selects the chair, your chair. So let me just switch to the next slide here and we'll come back. So how do you find a dip chair? In other words, what is the match process? Our department does a very unique way of matching students with dissertation chairs. So if you talk with students in other programs, in PhD programs, in other EDD programs, in Doctor of Nursing Practice programs, what have you, most programs or many programs have a process where the student individually identifies a chair and then seeks that person out, and it's a very behind the scenes kind of process. In our case, we have a very structured kind of process, and it has to do with the nature of our program. As you know, we're quite a large program, and students would not have had the opportunity to meet all of the people who are potential chairs. So we provide this structure for two purposes. One, to help you find a chair, and second, to build a cohort for you to go through that dissertation process with a group of students who are in approximately the same stage of the dissertation that you are. Because most of us as faculty have been through this process and are familiar with it ourselves. Research is lonely. And especially when you think about it in terms of an online program where you're dispersed all over the country, it kind of exacerbates that feeling of loneliness and disconnectedness. I'll say it's completely normal, but it is a feeling that we're trying to help give you some support with. And to do that, 814 is a course. You have 5 or 6 students in there with you. Most of the time it's 5. And then once you finish the course, hopefully the 4 or 5 of you, 6 of you have made those connections and can continue to support each other as you finish your dissertation. So those are the two-part purposes of having a match process and having a course, excuse me. So when this happens, it happens approximately 2 terms before 814 appears in your plan of study. So I think the people who, Mark, when did you start the program?
It was 18, so 2016.
2016, okay.
January 2016.
Okay, thank you. So the 2016 people I asked Mark because he's one of my ILD 814 students, so sorry to put you on the spot, Mark.
All good.
But the students in the 2016, February 2016 cohort have ILD 814 in their plan of study for this summer. The next round that we have in their plan is people who will take it in the spring 2 of 2019. So we are now fairly settled with people following the cohort plans. It's just every once in a while somebody has to take a little different path. But generally, we can anticipate when the majority of students will need 814 in any particular term. So using next time as an example, for spring 2 of 2019, I will start working on the match process in January. All right, early January probably. So what will happen is I'll work with Shannon, and the two of us will have a pretty good idea of how many people are supposed to be in 814 for spring 2. And then I'll create a Qualtrics survey with a link and send that to everybody who is scheduled to take 814 in spring 2 of 2019. In that Qualtrics survey, there will be questions about your research interests, your research question to the extent that you know it at the point that you're doing this survey, and then method preferences. And all we mean by that is, are you more comfortable with qualitative or are you more comfortable with quantitative? Understanding that that can change, but as a starting place. Then you will also, part of that survey will be 5 to 6 faculty names, including their CVs, a statement of their research interests, and then their methods preference. And what you will do then in that survey is rank, or it's not exactly ranking. You'll get strongly prefer, or not prefer as options for all 5 or 6 people who are available to teach and chair in that particular semester. So that's how you indicate to us, among the faculty who are available to teach and chair in that term, which faculty you would prefer to work with. Dr. Martin has done this for quite some time. I'm now in my 3rd iteration of this. And so far, most students tend to get their first or sometimes their second preferences just by the way it falls out in terms of what their research interests and their methodological interests are compared to the faculty we have in any particular term. So just depends. Then what I do is take all that survey data and match your cohort interests, or your interests, I'm not saying the right word, your preferences, excuse me, with the faculty spots that are available. And then I send out an email to all the students saying, here's the people you've been matched with. Are there questions about that before I explain the last bullet? Pretty clear? Christy says, okay. Sabrina's smiling. Mark's already in it, so. Okay. All right. Then what happens is Shannon will enroll you in that 814 section with that faculty member. So it's truly a match process. So your faculty match becomes your 814 faculty member, and then once that term is over, you stay with that faculty member as your chair until you finish. Chris, you had your hand raised.
Yeah. Is there a timing issue with who's selected to? Might you wind up in an 814 section that then starts 8 weeks later or 8 weeks later than that based on timing, or is that not a factor once you pick, or is that factored into who you assign in the first place?
It's factored in. I think it's factored into who I assigned in the first place. So to clarify, Dr. Martin and I look at all of the faculty who are potentially available to teach. We find out who's willing to teach that term. You choose from the 5 or 6 people who are available that term.
Availability is the table stakes. Got it. Okay.
Yep. Good question. Okay, so that's what happens in that process. That's how you get a chair. All right. Okay, after that, you'll be working with advice from your chair, your faculty advisor, and Shannon Cox. You'll be registering for 899 credit hours. They're dissertation hours going forward, and you need 8 of those before you're done with the program. So then you start working on your proposal in the course. Excuse me. All right, as part of the course, we have built in a process for obtaining a second committee person. So there's no reason to worry about that process until you're actually in the course. It's part of the discussion. It's part of the discussion board in 814. So you're going to decide, you're going to think about who might be eligible. You'll discuss that person with your chair as well as on the discussion board in the course. Then you'll discuss it with your faculty advisor. Then you can reach out to the person. So please don't reach out to people until you've got permission from those two people in that order, chair and then your faculty advisor. First of all, there are credentials that we have to ascertain before we approve it. And second, we want to make sure that it's a good match for you as well as a good match for the chair in terms of expertise. So for example, you might be interested in studying teams and groups, which is a good match with me. But suppose for some reason you like quantitative and there's a way to ask a question that uses a quantitative method about groups of teams. I would want to be sure that the person you're thinking about for your second committee member is somebody who has expertise in quantitative methods, because I'm a qualitative scholar. Okay? Might also be a content area expertise. So Mark, may I use you as an example? Okay, so Mark's study is focusing on generals in the Army Reserves who are able to succeed at high levels, which they have if they're a general, in the reserves, as well as they become what he calls captains of industry in their civilian life. Great. He's going to do qualitative. Great. We need a military content specialist to help on the second committee member. So does that make sense? I have another student who's interested in patient safety culture in hospitals. And so she's very interested in having as her second committee person someone who's responsible, is very well versed in establishing and studying patient safety cultures in hospitals. So she's getting somebody from her hospital system. All right, if you're studying an education question, perhaps you'll have somebody who's in a similar type of environment that you're working on for your project. Questions about that?
If you have someone from your own, from outside of Creighton, do they have to be doctorally prepared?
Yes, they do. They need to have the terminal degree in their field.
Okay.
All right. The reason I say that is because a medical doctor is not a PhD or an EDD, but he has or she has the terminal degree in medicine. Same with JDs. We have Doctor of Occupational Therapy is going to be a second on one of my students' committees. Doctor of Physical Therapy. There's a variety. It's the terminal degree in the field that you, whatever that is for that person.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. Once that is all arranged, then they'll be working with Lydia. You see, can you see my little hand? I'm pointing at it, but I don't know if you can see me pointing at it. No? Nope, okay. I'm pointing at Lydia Holtz's name in the second box.
Yeah, we can see your cursor.
Oh, you can? Good. Okay. It looks like a little hand to me. So Lydia is the person who will help with the logistics of getting that person situated as your second committee member once that's all been approved on all sides. And then there's a note here, once you've got the second committee member, you need to keep in touch with your chair and the second committee member about how things should progress. Who needs to see what chapters at what point in time? All right. Very broadly, it's 5 to 8. Okay. Completing the city training and IRBnet. Remember, once you, oh, I have this is out of order. Oh, no, it's not. Okay. So completing the sitting training and setting up IRB account, just make sure at this stage, in this box, very first box here, make sure at this stage that your city training is up to date. On occasion, it doesn't happen very often anymore, but on occasion, it might have been longer than 3 years ago when you start dissertation that you did your city training, and city training is only good for 3 years. So, and that's true for us. Mine's going to expire, I think, on July 15th. So I've already scheduled time in June to get it done. So you just have to make sure that you maintain certification in that process. You can start setting up your IRBNet account. You should have done that as part of 890, 899E. So just be sure that that's situated as you're designing your proposal PowerPoint. All right, so next step, you defend the proposal. Usually that happens within 16 weeks of finishing 814. Sometimes it's really close to finishing 814. I've had a couple people be able to defend 2 or 3 weeks later. Other people, it's much longer than that. It just depends on where you're at with your project and what dates and how the process goes with your chair. So I don't want to give you a solid time frame other than generally it's done within 16 weeks of finishing 814. So 2 terms past 814. Let's see. Okay, so scheduling the defense gives you some tips there. You work with Lydia to do that. I'm not going to say much more at this point about that.
I have a question.
Yes.
Are you in 899 during those 16 weeks?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, at least 1 credit, right, Shannon? Okay, could be 2, but usually at least 1.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, it counts. That time counts toward those hours. Absolutely. So, preparing the proposal defense presentation. There's actually 2 defenses in this whole process. The proposal defense and the final defense. So what we're talking about right now is defending your proposal. And when we say defense, it's not like you're on the firing line and you're going to have to, take questions. It's not like that. This is a discussion among you, your chair, and your second committee member about your proposal. So there may be things that need to actually be discussed rather than just written about in your proposal, and your committee needs to come to clarity together about that. So that's what the defense is about for that. You do not need to be here in person for this stage. It's often all done by Zoom or by a conference call, but it does need to be scheduled. It is something you work with Lydia to get scheduled, and then you prepare by developing this 15 to 20 slide PowerPoint presentation. What that does, because you might say, why do I need to do a PowerPoint presentation when both committee members have read the proposal? In some sense, I agree with you about that concern. On the other hand, what that allows you to do is to present your ideas in a very concise, organized way. It allows you to have control of your defense for the first 20 to 25 minutes, and then the 3 of you have a conversation about that proposal. So, and truly, it should be a conversation. So if one of the committee members says, well, I understood it this way, can you clarify this issue for me? So that the 3 of you really come to an agreement about your plan. You might say, why? Because once you have defended your proposal, you're off and running. You'll submit for IRB, and as soon as you have IRB approval, you actually go out and start collecting your data. So I've been doing this with another program for a really long time. And I don't know, about 10 years ago, one of my students came to me after the proposal defense and said, now what? And I was kind of taken aback by that, because your proposal is a plan for how you're going to go about doing this whole project. So you should know exactly what happens once that defense is done. There's no other mystery about what needs to happen next. You submit your proposal through IRB, and as soon as you have approval, whatever it is you said you were going to do, it's time to start doing. So, for example, if you're going to do a qualitative study and you've got IRB approval, you start contacting your participants. All right, whatever it is you outlined in your proposal to do, now it's time to implement that proposal. Questions about that? Okay, so we talked about that. There's a meeting. If you pass, great. If you don't, you have another opportunity to defend. So it's not completely do or die at that stage. All right, you'll get an email from Lydia that says whether you passed or not. So that's what this is. Oh, shoot, my little thing. I keep clicking instead of just pointing. I apologize. All right, so she'll send you the email. Then you submit that research plan to the Creighton IRB. Make sure you do it before you do anything else. To be frank with you, if you conduct your research without IRB approval, you will have to start over. I don't care if you defended the dissertation at the end and then we find out you didn't have IRB approval. It actually violates federal regulations for Creighton. So it is a very serious step because they take, the feds and Creighton take protecting participants in research studies very seriously. So make sure that you've got that. You submit your research plan. Creighton's IRB is relatively quick. They usually get you an answer within approximately 2 weeks. You know, if they get 100 proposals on one day, it might take longer than a week, or 2 weeks. But generally, the pace of it is about 2 weeks approval. Sometimes some of you will also need IRB approval from your organizations or whatever they call the IRB approval process in your organization. I'll use Mark as an example again. He's going to have to get approval from the Army Reserves to go about doing this. Other organizations have different kinds of processes. I have another dissertation student who had to get approval from her university because she works for a university and she's using university data for it. So she had to have approval from us as well as from her university. All right, whether you need that or not is entirely dependent on the organization that you're in. You have to have Creighton. Whether you need something else beyond that depends on the organization that you're a part of or that you're doing the study in. Okay.
Dr. Ford,
Yes.
is there a sequencing to the IRB approval? For instance, do you need to get like your own institution or where you're going to be doing your research? Does that need to happen before Creighton or vice versa?
It depends on the organization you work for or that you're doing the study in. Occasionally students do it in organizations they're not working for. Right. So it just depends. So some, I would say educational institutions that have a formal IRB office, usually you can go through IRB first and then you submit to another university or college IRB and they essentially are agreeing to rely upon Creighton's IRB. Okay. It's an agreement between the two institutions. Who asked that? Was that Charlotte?
Yes, that's
okay.
Charlotte.
And you work for Nebraska Wesleyan, right, Charlotte?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so if you're going to do a study at Nebraska Wesleyan, what I would do is call Nebraska Wesleyan and see what they need. If they say they want to give you permission first before you check with Creighton, do it that way. Okay. If they say it's okay to get Creighton's first and then submit documentation from Creighton that you have our approval, then you're good that way. So I would just contact your organization's office.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
Leah, have you had any other experience that's different than that?
Sorry, I had to find myself to unmute.
That's okay.
No, that sounds it's pretty typical. Yeah, and as you said, IRB is going to want permissions from the institution before they okay anything. So even when you're working on proposal work, I always have an informal conversation with the institution. I had a student one time who assumed because of some informal conversations she had with her place of work that she had full access to that data. And when she proposed her dissertation, the person she had asked didn't think to ask her supervisor, and they said, no, we have a blanket policy of no research at the institution. So she had to rewrite the whole thing. So, of course, we can't collect any data, but I think it's always wise to get a sense of whether you'll have access to that data and if the data that you think you'll have in the format that you'll really need it. So I would have those conversations without really promising or collecting any real information.
And basically, Mark, that's what you're doing, right? Is checking with the reserves.
Yes, I'm checking with all the different people who have approval authority just to make sure I've got as you said, I've got a good idea of where it will be easier and where it might be a little more difficult. where I had to talk to more people to get it done.
Okay, and Liz, you're on too, aren't you? Maybe.
Hi, yes, I am. Sorry.
Okay, so you're having informal conversations with your university, correct?
Yes, my second just agreed today, so I figured I'd get my second in order, and then I would reach out to the IRB office at the university.
Perfect, okay. And then the formal proposal process, and then formally apply to Creighton's IRB.
Of course, yes.
Okay. So it just varies by the organization that you're in. I agree. These informal conversations before you get very far are very important so you don't get hung up later. Other questions about that process? Okay. Then once you have IRB approval, you're going to get a letter, and you want to make sure that a PDF of that letter is sent to Lydia, the program coordinator, because we're tracking all of those for all those projects. All right. So then you go do it. That's what this slide says. That's what this step says right here. Go do the work. Collect data, you analyze the data, you're going to be writing. You can certainly ask questions along the way of your chair. Between the two of you, you may decide whether you want to reach out to the second committee chair. It depends on your individual situation. You want to be sure to follow the feedback that you're giving and stay in communication with particularly your chair. I'm not saying that the second committee member is not important, but it's important to let your chair know what is going on, particularly if something arises that takes your attention away from your dissertation. We know people change jobs. People have babies. People have family members who become ill. You might become ill. Knock on wood. I don't mean to say that should happen, but major life events occur that you have to pay attention to when they're happening. And school becomes secondary. We understand that. We just need to know it, because if we know that's going on, we have more flexibility in terms of the options we can offer you in the program. So please let your chair know and let Shannon know, or one or the other at least, so that we know where you're at with things. We can be a lot more helpful if we know what's up. You don't have to share a lot of personal details about it, just enough that we know that there is something going on and you haven't just fallen off this face of the earth. So, okay, once you've written chapter 4 and 5 and taken the feedback and revised and then waited for more feedback and then revised again and all that kind of process. When your chair and your second committee person agrees that you can schedule the defense, you're getting darn close to done. So when you're ready, then you start coming up with prospective dates that the three of you are available. You, as the student, do need to attend in person here in Omaha on Creighton's campus. Your chair and your second do not have to. If they're local or if they have the opportunity to come into Omaha, sometimes they do, but they're not required to. However, you are required to. The defense is the final exam, essentially, and so you do need to be here in person to do that. What's the second part here? Visits with coordinator. Oh, you select a date. Okay, so you've come up with these 3 to 5 dates, and then the chair will work with Lydia, the program coordinator, to finalize a date, because we can only do one at any particular morning or afternoon. So we can do 2 a day, but you can't be booked at the same time. So that's why the final arbiter is Lydia. There's enrollment in ILD 810. You'll work with your chair, your academic advisor, and Shannon about when to enroll for that. So don't worry about that now, but it's during the time that you will defend, you need to be enrolled in 810. Then you'll prepare a presentation. Okay, so here's about the final defense presentation. It's a 2-hour process. You begin the process in the same way that you did the proposal defense, in the sense that you create a 20 to 25 slide PowerPoint presentation about your project. So you're going to do basically provide the background information, high points of the literature review, high points of your methodology, high points of your findings, and then what does it mean in implications. for future research. So, or as well as recommendations for practice. So those are the key ideas that you're going to include in that presentation. Again, that means at the beginning of your defense, you have control over what's going on in your defense because you're doing that presentation for 20 to 25 minutes. After the 20 to 25 minutes, your chair, your second committee members, and any faculty members who attend your defense will ask you questions. Again, it's not designed to be a firing squad or execution squad. It's designed to ask questions that were not clear in your presentation, because often those are clearer in the writing, and not everybody reads all of the writing. And sometimes it's to push your ideas, to clarify points, those kinds of things. So you are the expert on your dissertation. You've written every word that's in it. So it's a time for you to answer questions about what's in that document. Once the questions and answers are done, which a total between the presentation and the questions is about an hour to an hour and 15 minutes, including your presentation, I should say. Then they'll ask you to leave the room, and your chair and your second committee member have a conversation. And then once they make a decision about whether you pass or not, they'll call you back in and let you know. That's what happens in the mystery defense. It's not that mysterious. And you'll have defended your proposal, so you're kind of used to how that process goes. You'll notice down here in the last block, it says student, chair, second committee person, faculty, and guests. Some of our students do choose to bring family members or or people they work with. Sometimes people will bring a member of their cohort. It's a technically public presentation. That public is never very big. I've seen maybe 10 people total, and that's faculty and people you invited, so it's not strangers, generally. Before I leave this step, questions? Do you see me look up? I'm watching the time. Okay. All right, this last piece of this presentation is some very specific things. So just basically, the chair and the committee complete the rubric that says pass or not pass or why, and why. Then you have to do revisions to the final dissertation. I would claim that most dissertations have revisions. I think I've only ever heard of once in all my 20 years of teaching where somebody had no revisions. And that was, with another faculty member, it wasn't me. So revision, pretty much expect revisions because you have new eyes on the document, new ideas, new ways of looking at things, ways to clarify. So expect revisions. You need to complete those. Then you submit those revisions to the chair, and there's a way of uploading that final dissertation into the database, and Lydia will help you with that process. There's a few things that you have to work on, in terms of, I want to scroll down, but it doesn't want to scroll. Okay. Administrative requirements and applying for degree conferral. There are things you have to do administratively for the university to know that you're done, that you intend to go to hooding, and or that you intend to go to commencement. There's some of those planning things. So make sure that you stay in contact with Shannon Cox about that, as well as Lydia, where Lydia's steps are. And all of this is included in a dissertation cheat sheet in the EDD resources site to help remind you of those steps. Quick resources. There's a variety of documents and manuals. There's templates for both the proposal and the final dissertation document, so you have a starting place. There's a template for the PowerPoint for both the proposal defense and the final defense. There's a dissertation and practice manual, there's cheat sheets, there's research help and APA issues, there's references or links to get back to library sources. Always your faculty advisor is available to help you if you get stuck. The EDD program coordinator, Lydia Holtz, is the person who can help you with these different processes of proposing and that kind of thing. Shannon Cox is our EDD program academic coach. She can help you with the details of enrollment, If you're having trouble getting a hold of your faculty member, let Shannon know. She can help you get connected. Oh, and then I'm under my thing there. I have a little, I can't see my own name here. I'm available as the course director for ILD 814. You can always contact me. Sometimes an email from me or an email from your academic advisor or an email from Dr. Moss-Breen, which I would direct you to her for really having trouble getting you connected. Sometimes those emails from us will get some attention a little more quickly if you've really had trouble connecting with your chair in particular. So, or any kinds of questions you have, please don't hesitate to let me know. Okay, so before we have Shannon talk here really quick, I just want to announce we are not doing a JayTalk in July. The next JayTalk will be a welcome and overview of the program. Shannon's going to be the lead facilitator on that program. It's going to be geared to new students who will be starting in August, but you're certainly welcome to attend. Sometimes it helps to hear that information more than once. So it'll be Wednesday, August 8th at 7:30. So questions on any of the dissertation information before Shannon joins us? Do you have any rumors you want to dispel about the proposal process? Maybe not your question, but you heard.
Dr. Ford,
Yes.
this is Anita.
Hi.
Not a rumor, but I'm puzzled by the fact that our committee tells us that we're ready to defend the dissertation, right? So they've
Yep.
reviewed it, we made revisions and revisions. What type of things then would we discover in the defense that would require further revisions?
That's a good question. Sometimes, what's a good example? Sometimes the faculty may have worked with you and they're ready to have you present, but they still haven't come to full agreement that what you're trying to do is clear in a particular spot. And so presenting it is another opportunity to discuss it in a slightly different perspective, and that helps people get on the same page about what you're doing. The faculty who attend are often the rest of the core faculty who are here in the office. So it's Dr. Georges, me, Dr. Bloomquist, Dr. Martin, Dr. Moss-Breen, and then Dr. Williams when he can be here. So we may have questions because we each bring a different perspective. We each bring different content and methodological expertise that can really help move ahead what you have in your dissertation. So I'll give you an example. I was just working with Dr. Georges, who's a second committee member on one of my students' advisees project. And she noticed something in between two chapters that I've read it 14 times. And so I've stopped being able to see it because you assume or you read over it kind of thing. So it can really help to have different eyes on it to improve it. Leah or Tony, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think that's one of the key things is you're in the weeds as a committee and a student with it so deeply that sometimes when you say things out loud, students often say, when I defended this out loud, I heard myself saying this and I realized it wasn't as clean as it could be, or I meant engagement, but I really said, I said involvement, but it really is engagement. So typically the revisions are not overhauling of chapters or anything like that. It's more, I didn't realize that proposed solution was a bit broader than I had thought it was, or in bouncing this off of other people in the room, maybe it's not about creating recommendations for training for the company, but for my department. And often when I help students or when I'm chairing dissertations, I usually read all but that very last time prior to a dissertation. So when I read it in the days before a student defends. I've read it, again, a million times, but I save that last read for right before they defend. And usually when I do that, there's usually some technical edits to make in the document that I'm not going to send a student 12 hours before they defend because that's just mean. So it's usually small things like that that come up. But in working with your committee, it shouldn't be an overhaul-y type event. It hasn't been, at least in my experience.
Okay. Thank you.
Is that helpful?
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Tony's popped back in. Maybe, Tony, you had thoughts. I saw you appear.
Yeah, I had to go turn the light on. I was sitting here in the dark. One of the last committees I was on, we had the student defended, and I think it was Deb that asked a question in there that we knew that the student did and completed, but she didn't have a document that clearly summed that up. So we had her add that as an additional appendix, something that goes in the back, so that anybody that is reading that dissertation, because it gets out there on the public access site where anybody can get to it, they could see that document of how it was clearly laid out of what the student participated in. We knew she did it, but we didn't think much about it until Deb asked that question. And we're like, oh yeah, you need to add that as an appendix. So that's some of the kind of changes or modifications you'll do after you defend. It's not anything cosmic per se. It's, oh yeah, that would help make the picture a lot clearer.
The other thing that faculty tend to notice, because this is the first time we're hearing it, so it's like I said, new eyes. We will notice things that are left out of the presentation that are in the dissertation, which is fine, except that we are also kind of like audiences that you might be presenting to after you've defended and graduated. So Dr. Martin in particular is really good at noticing, at least I've seen him do it a few times. He'll say, if you go to present this to somebody outside of Creighton, say at a conference that you're attending, you're going to want to highlight X, Y, Z so that it's clearer for an audience who is a generalist audience, not generalist, someone who's not, as Leah said, in the weeds of the document, but you're presenting it to a broader, I jumped around on that answer. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
We're hearing it as a professional audience would. So here's your chance to get some feedback about how you present before you go to the National Association of Student Personnel Administrators and present your document, for example.
Okay.
So it's those kinds of things.
Yeah. Okay. And you said that, I think I must have missed this detail on one of the slides when you talked about the defense. So there will be other faculty there besides the committee?
Yes, it's the core faculty who usually attend.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Dr. Georges, me, Dr. Mossbreen, Dr. Martin, Dr. Bloomquist, and Dr. Williams when he's in town.
Okay.
He can't always come, but he comes when he can.
Thank you.
Other rumors?
Well, I don't know if this is a rumor, but I can imagine that it would take different lengths of time from getting your proposal approved to getting the final defense. Could you just talk to us about, the ranges of times and what are some things that might cause it to be longer? I don't imagine we all fit into that tight timeline on the PowerPoint.
You mean for the PowerPoint presentation or for doing the research?
I mean for doing the research. So after your proposal has been approved and then the time between defense could be a very variable time frame.
Okay. You're going to hate this answer, but it's the classic it depends. I have a student who's doing a secondary data analysis, meaning there's data already collected and she's asking a different question of it. So after she has IRB approval, she's got to pull the data and clean it and that kind of thing, but she has no time needed to run a survey or recruit participants, send out the survey, download this data, do all that kind of stuff. She can skip all of that because she's using data that's already collected. Versus, for example, somebody who's going to do interviews with probably 15 to 20 people, each of which has to be arranged, each of which has to be conducted, so there's hours right there, has to be transcribed, verified, then the thematic analysis can begin. And you might have easy access to participants, meaning you know who they are, they're pretty quick to arrange. I have a student right now who did interviews with another unit in his organization. Those people were very excited about the topic. There were only 15 of them or 16 of them. He was able to reach all of them except one who agreed to do it. He actually did all of his interviews within a few weeks. But that could be entirely different for somebody else who might, really struggle to get the people recruited, to get them scheduled, to get those interviews conducted. So it depends on the project that you have. That's why those timeframes on that first slide have a wide range, and it really varies with those kinds of factors in terms of how long it takes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Shannon, we see your cat. It's great. Okay, we're coming up on 8:30. Shannon, I wanted to give Shannon a few minutes to say hi and announce anything she wants to. Just connect really quick.
Yeah, hi guys. I just wanted to chime in, and Deb and I were talking the other day. Sorry, I'm trying to wrangle an almost 1-year-old here. About, helpful hints. And I said, it's just kind of as basic as just communication. Whenever, and Deb kind of talked about this a little bit in her presentation, but we don't know if you don't tell us. And that graphic of the straight line and what it really looks like becomes so true. And sometimes students, they're embarrassed, or they don't know what to do with that information, or whatever the case may be. And so lots of times if you just reach out and say, hey, this is going on, then we can develop a plan, or maybe we have this option that you didn't think about. What I hate is when students, they're registering for those $8.99 credits, and then it gets to the end and it comes out and they say, oh, well, this family member was sick, and so I really didn't end up being able to work on it. And it's one of those things where, if you just reach out and say, this term, I don't know that I'm going to be able to devote a lot of time. Is there something else we can do? And we can make arrangements. Checking your Creighton email is huge, and especially when you get into this dissertation phase where you're not having to log in for class every week. Make it a point on your calendar that you check your Creighton email every Monday. Because maybe an announcement came out. Maybe there's something about registration. Who knows what it is? But just make sure that you're still engaging there. I'm going to be reaching out for registration to ask you how many of those $8.99 credits you want to register for. And we might need to have a conversation about that. So, just keep in touch, whatever it is. I got a new job. I need to move. My plan changed. What does that mean for my plan of study? Just let me know and we'll work through it. It's worse when it's too late and you're getting a letter that you're being withdrawn because you violate the continuous enrollment policy. And then you say, oh, well, this, and this. Yeah, then we should have talked about that. Okay, I'm done.
Thanks, Shannon. Okay, burning questions. This is your chance. Well, it's a chance. Charlotte?
Hi, Dr. Ford. This is Charlotte Liggett again.
Hi, Charlotte.
So one of the rumors we've heard is that there's like 16 competencies that we have to be aware of or put in a portfolio at some point, and none of us know where to find those 16 competencies. Can you guide us?
Yes, you don't have to do that.
Okay.
That is an old way that we used to do candidacy.
Okay.
All right, so it applies to some people who've been in the program for quite some time. There is an older process for candidacy that has to do with that. We no longer offer that option. When did we stop offering it, Leah?
All students admitted as of August 2016 and after practice the 2 essay writing. Students admitted prior to that may choose the ePortfolio approach, where they essentially upload artifacts to show attainment of the, at the time, 9 program learning outcomes. certainly not 16.
Okay.
But that time has shifted. No student, I haven't seen ePortfolio in a very long time. But it is a remnant of previous admission, so there's nothing like that within the curriculum. If you really want to know what it looks like, the previous candidacy manual is in the Student Resource Center. It's right below the one that notes students admitted as of August 2016. Any student may write the 2-essay approach, even if you're admitted prior to August 2016, but all students August 2016 after write the essays and don't mess around with that ePortfolio.
Thank you very much. That was.
Does that sound like what folks have been talking about?
Yes. What happened was someone in my cohort had a discussion with an older student, not by age, but an older student, and they said, for sure, pay attention. Well, and I'm not sure where the 16 competencies came from, but that was the question. So, thank you.
Sure. Yeah, Charlotte, you just started in October, right? I mean, last August?
Yes, that's correct.
Right, so that doesn't apply to you.
Yeah, I'm in cohort 42.
Okay.
We have a little group me and we ask each other questions. So,
anytime you hear questions like that, let us know. I'd rather dispel the rumor.
Yeah, I'll send out a little message and let them know. We don't need to worry about that.
Thank you. Anybody else? Well, hearing no burning issues, I want to thank all of you for joining me. If you want to watch this again because of the PowerPoint presentation, I'll have it posted sometime tomorrow in the EDD resources site. And if you have questions as you go along, please let one of us know. We'd so rather talk with you and dispel rumors than have you be worried about something that you don't. There's plenty of work to do without worrying about rumors. So, all right. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Good night.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye, Tony.
See ya.
Bye, y'all.
Thanks, Leah. Thanks, Shannon. I think you got your lifting done. Oh, now I can't hear you. There you
Sorry
go.
for the interruptions.
That's okay. We needed to get awake after that content anyway. Bye, Lydia.
Perfect. You guys just got free admission.
Bye, guys.
See you tomorrow.
Bye.
Bye.